Hello, everyone. Welcome to another virtual astrology club. I am your astrologer person for today. I am Claire Moon, and we're going to be talking about the month of May. So before we jump into everything, if you'll look over to the right side of your screen, there should be a little chat here. Feel free to nerd out. Feel free to ask me questions if any come up. I'm not as good with keeping up with this chat during the forecast as I am during my monthly Q&A, which is the second Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. Central Time, on YouTube as well. I'm better at it with that. That being said, I do try to keep up with this a little bit. There is like a 20-second delay. So if you ask something or say something and I don't get to it, I apologize. Okay, so first things first, thank you for some new faces. Welcome, Bonnie. Welcome back, Catman. I know you're usually here. Thanks for joining us again. Hi, Sarah. We got Andrea's here. James is here again. Thank you very much for the congratulations. And thank you for bringing that up. I did want to put it in my announcements before we jump in. I did the May forecast with the Astrology podcast with Chris Brennan and Austin Kopik. So that was a huge honor, like pretty much the biggest at this point in my little tiny life and career. So that was a big deal. It was really fun, had a blast. So definitely I personally watch like 3 or 4 different monthly forecasts. And then between mine and the other people I watch, I kind of triangulate and figure out my life. So feel free to go watch that one. I've got a bunch of other people. I usually watch Spencer Michaud, Michaud. They do really great ones. If anybody else has any other forecasts that you like to tune in with, Chani Nichols, always amazing. Chani Nicholas, always amazing. Sparkles of Gold, he's been doing some really good work. Nicholas Polymenikos, I think I said it right this time. Who else? I know there's some other people. Anywho, I did want to tell one one little joke. So this is for the millennials. It's for the elder millennials. It's for the people who grew up in middle school really loving NSYNC so much and Justin Timberlake. But if I know one thing for the month of May, if I could just tell you anything for the month ahead that I know more than anything as an astrologer, it's that it's going to be May. It's going to be May. So I've been waiting to tell that joke for all 5 of you who just got it. I'm such a fucking dork. I've been waiting to tell that joke for like 2 weeks. So there, I did it. I do it every 12 months. That's my joke for May, every 12 months. All right, let's get this party started. Here's our clock. Here's me in the little corner. I'm going to use my pen. I draw and I scribble around everywhere. It's arbitrarily set to where I am, which is around Madison. Oh, before I do though, who else is here? Did anyone get my sweet joke that I find more funny than most people? Thanks, Andrea. I appreciate that. Welcome, Kay. Welcome, Donna. Fionn is here. I'm going to say your name flawlessly. Fionn Cleary, right? That's how you say it. And I've been wrong about saying it this entire time. But Fionn is a fantastic, very talented astrologer from Ireland. So go check out their work. Lee is here. Hi, Lee. Nanda Devi's back. Welcome. We got Reverend Kai. Welcome, Reverend. Thank you for being here. Thank you for groaning and laughing. I appreciate at least one person got my joke. All right. So May. Just a couple thoughts before I get into the details. May, it begins with a bunch of cliffhangers. Like basically April ends in kind of a mess, to be honest, just lack of better words. April ends in a mess. And then we enter into May and all of the messes are still kind of going. And maybe it's not like a mess, but if there's narratives, if there's a plot line, if there's something that is unresolved in your life at the end of April, I want you to give it till like the last third of May or till the end of May. And I hate to give us that long of a thing, but that's the weather that I'm seeing. So hang in there if you've got some plot lines that need to be worked out. Again, by the last half of the month, the later we go, I think like the better, the more resolved things will be. Okay, that's like the 9,000 foot view. I'm not going to go over every single little transit, but I'm going to try to get the big ones. Let me get my notes up. So the dates of interest here are Pluto stationing retrograde on the 1st, Mercury cazimi on the 1st, and then Jupiter does its phasis. It's going to, it might already be visible before this. I'm not sure. It depends on your location, but Jupiter sometimes will be visible before that 15-degree mark, which we'll talk about away from the sun, but that's also on the 1st of May. So the 1st of May is a lot of action. Then we've got on the 5th of May, Scorpio lunar eclipse. Venus enters Cancer on the 7th. Mercury is going to do its morning rise on the 12th. They will station direct on the 14th. Mercury will station direct on the 14th. Jupiter enters Taurus on the 16th. We have a Taurus new moon on the 19th. Then Mars is going to enter Leo. Cue a bunch of stuff that we'll talk about. On the 21st, then we're going to have Sun entering Gemini. And then by the 31st of May, Mercury will leave its post-retrograde shadow. So, we see middle of the month, we have Mercury stationing direct. By mid-month, we've got the second of the two lunar eclipse, or the second of the two eclipses, the lunar eclipse, wrapping up that eclipse season hole that we're in. So those are the two big things that we end April in the middle of a Mercury retrograde. We end April in the middle of an eclipse season. And that's why I said all the stuff that I just did about things resolving or kind of figuring themselves out by the end of the month, which can be good to know too, because sometimes we feel, especially when Mars is involved, we can feel a sense of urgency to fix, to reconcile, to fiddle, and, meddle. And we don't have to always do that. We can just kind of, if you're like me, just kind of watch the weather. I like to pretend I'm like, like a farmer with my hands on my hips, like looking out over my field, seeing if the rains are going to come, and just kind of doing nothing. So that's my plan. And then, okay, we got the dates. The other thing I like to talk about before getting into each day, each week, is the qualities check-in, the modalities and the elements check-in. And I'm not going to explain at all what any of this means, so apologies if this isn't going to make astrological sense. I've been explaining it a lot in past months, past videos, but essentially we have a lot of fixed energy this month. A lot of planets are going to be moving into fixed signs, and fixed signs are these. We've got Leo, Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius. All of these represent the middle time of a season, when that season is a little bit more predictable. The weather is more predictable. Our actions are a bit more predictable. So we get more of this fixed, predictable quality. That is a signature this month. Lots of action there. We are also going to have quite a bit more planets in passive, nocturnal, feminine signs than we will in the daytime, diurnal, masculine signs. So when I put those two things together, because the passive nature of the nocturnal signs, the earth signs, the water signs, they will more respond to what is around them, versus the daytime signs are more going to influence things around them. They're going to act, they're going to get up off their bum. The water earth signs will more wait to respond to things. So that's more the energy this month. There's a lot going on transit wise, but then if we just look at the locations of the planets and what are those planets experiencing, they're experiencing a lot of fixed energy. So it's not the energy of change, even though right now we are in a space of change for sure with the eclipses and the retrograde. But the month of May itself seems to want to focus on things that are already going, or that are wanting to be maintained. That, or we've already started things and now that fixed energy wants to be expressed in a routine, in something that is consistent. So if you don't have anything that's like that in your life, particularly in the fixed areas of the chart, you might want to consider what consistent things can take place here, especially in Taurus, consistent material resources. How do I get those in order? Or just consistently managing my material space, my things, my stuff, my home, all of those material things. How do I manage that regularly? Or in the case of Leo, say, consistent action. How do I want to act consistently? But that's more the focus this month, these fixed signs. And then the passive nature, more responding to things that have already happened. So we're trying to nestle into some kind of routine or rhythm, trying to figure out routines and rhythms. And we're also doing it in a way that is more responsive to a lot of things that have already happened versus going out and kind of fiddling with things external to us. So hopefully that makes sense. That's kind of just a background 9,000 foot view of the month. With that, I'm going to check in with the chat. I'm going to sip on my juice because I'm always drinking juice. Any fans of Arrested Development out there? I am like Buster with my juice. Let's see if anyone has any questions. Yeah, Bonnie, poor fixed signs, but not as poor as they used to be because Saturn is no longer in there, which is great. And pretty soon Jupiter is going to be in the fixed signs. And then I know that there's a retrograde, but later this summer, we're going to have Venus, June through basically almost October, pretty much October in a fixed sign. So fixed signs for 2023 are going to be doing a little bit better. But this last eclipse series that we've been having, or that we are having, it's something to deal with, or to watch. Thanks, Fiat. I love being flawless. Happens once every 10 years. Okay. So without further ado, let us look at that really interesting day one. May 1st. So we start this day with a Mercury cazimi, with Pluto retrograding, and with Jupiter rising in the morning sky. So first things first, let's talk about Jupiter. Jupiter has been hidden because it's been too close to the sun to see in the morning or evening. And it's too close to the sun to be seen in the middle of the night. So Jupiter has not been visible. That means that Jupiter's significations, what Jupiter stands for, those things have also maybe been a bit quieter. And so with Jupiter, we're thinking about understanding stuff. Maybe it's harder to understand stuff when Jupiter is hidden behind the beams of the sun. Legal rulings, Jupiter being the spirit of the law and how we order those things, those may have been a bit hidden or not being shared openly or publicly, maybe. Any kind of seeking of knowledge, forgiveness, opportunity, faith, any of those Jupiter things. With Jupiter coming out of the beams, becoming visible, maybe some of those things are going to be more apparent. And that doesn't mean the day of, it doesn't mean like on the 1st, if you've been waiting for understanding on something or for more knowledge to come in on something. I'm not saying that it's going to happen on the 1st, but now that Jupiter is visible, it's more likely that those Jupiterian qualities are going to be more forthright and out there. Thinking about Jupiter in Aries in general is very straightforward, kind of pointing, shooting, not asking a lot of questions, not thinking very much about it. They're willing to take risks and be really bold. And so we might notice a bit more of that coming from Jupiter now that they're visible. They set back on March 23rd. So we've had approximately 1 month of Jupiter being hidden behind the beams. They're going to be rising in the morning sky. The convention is kind of, the convention is 15 degrees that any planet that's within 15 degrees of the sun, just conventionally is quote unquote under the beams, which is what changes these things symbolically, astronomically. Visually speaking, if I'm out there in the world, it's very possible that we don't even have to wait until the sun gets to 11, you know. We might not even have to wait till there's that 15 degrees expanse there to be able to see Jupiter, because Jupiter's so bright. So, but at least by the 1st, should be able to see Jupiter rising in the morning before the sun. So that's going on. At the same time, the person with all the details and the facts that we need for the Jupiter understanding, that is still hidden, and it's going through a thing right now. This is a special time when we have Mercury meeting the sun, and within 1 degree is considered, that's the Hellenistic definition for something called a cazimi, and that is it can be loosely translated to being in the heart of the sun. So Mercury is going to be in the heart of the sun, and it's a bit of a reprieve because being so close to the sun can be a lot for planets. They're just kind of getting nailed by all these like rays of light. It's very bright and it's hot and it's dry. And so it's sometimes harder for planets to do their job or to function in a really clear way when they're really close to the sun. One exception to this is this day on May 1st. We're going to have Mercury meeting the sun, getting this moment of reprieve where we'll have really pure expression of Mercury. Our plans, our rational thoughts, particularly what we've been planning in Taurus and the Taurus part of our chart. If you have been trying to sort things out in the Taurus area of your chart, keep your ears and your mind and your heart kind of at the ready on the 1st of May to take in whatever realizations come in. And a lot of times I do feel like it's that subtle. It is, I realize something, I get a new piece of information, and that helps me take the next intellectual step in a process. That could very well be the case. We could be getting in information that day that is very practical and down to earth, just straight up information that we needed to cultivate some kind of plan here. And then moving forward, like this is the very middle of this Mercury retrograde story that started on the 21st of April. So by the 1st of May, we're hitting the middle point of this story. Hopefully on this day, we get some kind of helpful insight. And then the rest of May is really spent moving to the other side of that story and coming out from that. So usually by the end of the retrograde, which is going to be on the 15th or 16th, when Mercury stations direct, by that point, I would assume that any kind of Mercury retrograde story that you did have should be coming to resolution by mid May, but then waiting until Mercury gets out of its shadow period by the end of May to really look at that stuff that started around mid-April and see all of that in the rear view mirror and be like, okay, we're done with that. We're not dealing with that anymore. Takes Mercury time to speed up, you know, so we'll talk about that. But anyway, this is the middle. This is also Mercury's rebirth. Mercury has a whole cycle that it does with the sun, kind of moving back and forth from the evening sky to the morning sky, each time moving through these purifying fires of the sun. And this moment in particular, when Mercury is retrograde, this is when Mercury is being reborn. It's a reset. So it may also, on the 1st of May, be resetting these Mercury places in your chart. So look to which houses are there and what topics might be in the Mercury ruled places of your chart. For me, that's going to be my romantic life. That's my collaborative life. That is, for me, it's the 8th. So it's like death, taxes, inheritance, stuff like that. I might have to go hunting for something there. Thankfully, I don't have anything going on. But it could be resets with those topics as Mercury resets its cycle with the sun. So watch out for that. Talked about Jupiter, talked about Mercury, then Pluto. So when Pluto stations, it is all of it's very slow. So certainly a different set of feelings, experiences that go along with an outer planet stationing retrograde or stationing direct versus a really fast planet like Mercury. Pluto, they're going to be at the 0 degrees of Aquarius. So if you yourself have any points, and I mean, I would think pretty close, at least within 3 degrees, if we're doing kind of the special 3-degree rule that all the authors like to use. But certainly if you've got points in your chart that are at like 0, 1, 2 degrees of fixed signs, I mean, of really any of the signs that can interact by a major aspect with Aquarius, you may be sensing something. I'm not sure. I have like a planet at 5. Aquarius is my rising sign, so I personally feel like I've been noticing some things. But we'll see how this feels. I think the main thing is just to more know the dates on this one and just, continue to watch. We've had Pluto in here since March 23rd, and it's a little preview. It's like a 3-month preview until June 11th, at which point Pluto will go back into Capricorn to deal with some unfinished business. But this has just been like a 3-month little preview of what big shifts are to come in that sign house of your chart, which will be a whole big ass 20-year transit. Like, it's going to take forever. I don't think it's going to knock most of us over the head. But yeah, like think to yourself at this point too, like, we've been in this long enough now. We've had a good month with Pluto and Aquarius, especially an air sign intellectually. What are you being asked to change your mind about? I can already tell you that in my first house, I am being asked to change my mind about how I think about how I look. I'm not gonna get into the trigger warning-y stuff about that because God, we're on YouTube in public. But first house, mind, body, self, rethinking how I'm considering those things, right? I'm already a little privy to that. So I think that's going to be one of the things for me. So you can do the same exercise and look at those house topics, see how you can change your mind about those things. But anyway, we're getting a station on the 1st, and that's the 1st. So that was a big day. Little separate things kind of going on, may or may not be related to one another. But in general, be watching, be writing down thoughts that you have come in. A lot of times these transits don't happen with external things. It's more of like an internal shift, an internal set of thoughts that arise that are helpful or skillful in some kind of way. So on the 3rd, can move forward to May 3rd. The main thing I wanted to talk about here is that we have a couple days where Mars has an overcoming square with the moon by sign. And I mean, for the first day, moon is approaching by degree. And this can be like a sense of urgency that can come in from Mars, not having a lot of sense of agency to act, not having a lot of sense of its own personal autonomy in Cancer to do what it wants to do, and yet maybe making the moon feel like we need to do something. And maybe we need to do something and it's relational, and we got to talk to this person about this, and we got to do something with that. And maybe you do. Like, this could very well be a square that speaks to some kind of tension that needs to be resolved, or, some kind of adjustment that needs to be made. That's very, very possible. But if you can just pick your battles on the 3rd, reminding us that this is leading us up to the eclipse that we're about to have on the 5th. I'm not going to go just picking any battle on this day, whether it is like a subtle emotional one with my mother or like, any of the battles. Just be careful which ones you pick, because this is going to bleed over into that eclipse energy. I mean, we're already kind of in it. This is within the eclipse bardo period between eclipses. I usually assign a few days of the month as like kind of mind your own business days. There's a lot this month. But that's also really flippant advice, because sometimes you can't mind your own business. Okay. What else on that day? That is kind of interesting. I don't know if this counts for anything, but also on the 3rd, Venus is reaching 25 degrees of Gemini, where Mars stationed. And it's going to be Yeah, this is something this is another thing that's leading us into the eclipse. Okay, so we had mentioned Moon Mars square, just kind of interpersonally, emotionally crunchy territory. Venus, Neptune they're also having a bit of a square here. And a square energy is that of tension, conflict, adjustment, needing for change, needing for effort, Mars stuff. And between Neptune and Venus, it can be, not having a good idea, Neptune, uncertainty with relationship, Venus, uncertainty with relationship, maybe such that it feels conflictive. It could be an internal conflict about relationship, potentially because we don't know what the hell is going on with the situation. Could be a lot of things, but if this were a trine, we would be having a different conversation, and we will be, when Venus is up here. That's going to be a really nice trine with Neptune. But this square feels, again, with the rest of the sky, Moon is square Mars on this day. This just feels like more confusion added to a situation that didn't really need any for it to already be difficult to navigate. The last time we had this configuration was actually the very beginning of, what was it? It was the beginning of December of 2022. So like 5 months ago, 6 months ago, and Venus was at the end of Sagittarius, and we had the last Venus Neptune square. And that was really interesting because that was when we had that Lensa app come out, that app where you could like put in a bunch of your own pictures, and then it would give you like a digital artist rendering of your pictures. And everyone was obsessed with it that first week of December. People were nuts about it. Everyone was doing it. And it really, what it did was it brushed up this whole AI debate, and the debate about AI generated art. And in that Venus Neptune square, there was a lot there about illusion, the Neptune ideal, the Neptune romanticized versions of beauty with Venus. So here we could get a similar thing. We might be idealizing, romanticizing relationships, and it might get us in trouble. We might be, even with our relationships, maybe idealizing them so much that we're not very realistic, and we end up being harder on people than we need to be, or harder on ourselves than we need to be. If you're not partnered, if you're not in a relationship with someone, it could be idealization, romanticization, I don't know how to say that word, romanticization of relationship in general. And then maybe, like not having a realistic view about like what relationship is. You don't have to be in a relationship to do that, but it can feel ouchy. So yeah, this day, May 3rd, I don't know, approach with caution, threat level yellow, threat level orange. It's not like, maybe it's a green, but we're going into that eclipse, so I just don't like any of it. Before we run into that eclipse, which I'm about to, let's check in with this chat and see how things are going. Ooh, Catman says no Twitter on May 1st. Is Twitter going away on May 1st? They're getting new terms and conditions on the 18th, which is interesting too, because the new terms and conditions for Twitter basically say that after May 18th, anything you put on there is fair game for the AI learning, whatever, like that X Corp does, Elon Musk's company. So they'll have access to all of that for their own. He's probably going to be making his own AI. But anyway. Yes, Sarah says hide in your Taurian cabins. Yeah, you can try to hide. I try to hide. I try to do that. I actually did that last week. I took a bunch of days off, like right as Mercury was approaching Uranus and stationing, and I was like, I just want to not be here for this. And it was actually the best decision that I have ever made. And I'm pretty sure moving forward, I am going to schedule a week off during like every Mercury retrograde for the rest of my life, if at all possible. I can't hide from the whole thing, but it was a really, really good move. Oh, we got D. D is here. Hi, D. We got some people that found me from the astrology podcast. Welcome. I'm I was pretty shy. Like I struggle with people who've been listening to me for a long time. Little digression. People who've been listening to me for a long time know like that I've struggled with stage fright massively. Like big big fan of just getting nervous before I have to do anything in front of people. And I sweat a lot, like Robin Williams level sweating probably over here. Thank God no one has smell-o-vision. I've gotten better. When it's just me and like I'm on my own channel, like I'm like, whatever, like I don't have to do a good job. I mean, I do, like, and I want to, but you know, it's not like on somebody else. Like anytime I'm collaborating or working with anybody else, I get like really serious and like I want to do like a perfect job because it's somebody else's stuff and it's not just my shitty shit. So maybe that's what it is to have like Virgo in the 8th and Pisces in the 2nd house. I'm an Aquarius rising. It's like I like if I'm even like folding shirts for somebody else, like I'll fold their shirts perfectly like a Virgo would, but like my shirts, I just like throw them in a pile, like whatever. But anyway, so I was a little shy. So if you're seeing me for the first time, I have a little bit more fun here because it's just my own little dumb thing. Um, Andrea brings up a good point. Taurus 5th house. Guessing they're not getting back on the dating apps until the end of May. Yeah, maybe not. If that were me, because like I was on the casual dating scene not that long ago for like a little while. And of course, being I'm an astrologer, I was like electing everything and like electing like literally everything. It was not healthy, totally neurotic. But yeah, if I had a Taurus 5th house, if I was a Capricorn rising, dating during Mercury retrograde in the 5th, you know, it could be fine. Like, let's say you just end up meeting somebody in the month of May during all of this. That's totally great. It could be as simple as you having a miscommunication about which coffee house to meet at, or you know, it could even be descriptive of doing your dating life in like a different way, experimenting, doing things differently. Mercury retrograde, we're thinking about it differently. We're reorganizing, reevaluating. So it could be like very fruitful, but definitely, you know, if there are any questions, yeah, just wait till it's over. I mean, thankfully, it's such a short transit that, you know, it's not too bad to have to wait it out. And then very cutely, which we'll get to later, Jupiter's going into your 5th then in Taurus in the middle of May. And that's going to be great for dating. Famous last words. Yeah, Catman says stay off social media until May 20th. I mean, as you'll see, like May 20th is actually going to be pretty spicy. There's like this big T-square coming. I think the thing is just like, you know where you're putting stuff on the internet and be ready for whatever that means. As someone who was once a performance artist and has lots of things on the internet that would make my mother very upset. You know, it's kind of like, yep, that's all fair game now. Like everything on the internet is just fair game for AI. So, you know, decide what you will. Snapchat. Oh, I forgot about Snapchat. Yeah, everybody's doing that. That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, we don't even need astrology to say that it's a good idea to just probably avoid social media. It's not good for us. It's horrible for all of us. I mean, it's not as simple as that. There's been lots of great connections I've made, plenty I would have never made without social media. I literally wouldn't have any of this. I started this on social media. So there are definitely some good things. But when the skies are stormy, you know, the internet, all of that takes place there as well. So, um, yes. Okay. What else? Is it time to talk about the eclipse? I think it is. So then on the 5th, we have a lunar eclipse. Then I'm going to share, I had the hardest time forever remembering like how to remember which is which. Solar eclipse versus lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipse is the full moon one because you can actually see the moon. The solar eclipse is the new moon one. You can only see the sun. You can't see the moon. So that's how I remembered in my brain. Otherwise, it was not for like a year. I just couldn't remember which one was which. So this is a full moon. It's a culmination of things, right? It's a culmination not only of something that may have started 2 weeks prior, but it's the culmination as well of maybe something that was begun 6 months ago, maybe even something that shifted or a storyline that changed during the last set of eclipses, which were, when were they? They were last October, I believe it was. Now we're getting another one. So great fruits, like fruitings, peakings, the coming forth of things that have been growing. Even just like as simple as the moon shining light on something. The moon is shining light on something. And when it's an eclipse, just dial all of it up. Just amplify all of it, make it all louder, make it all maybe a little bit more meaningful. It doesn't necessarily have to be dramatic. Again, these things can happen internally, especially with nocturnal signs like an earth sign and a water sign. These are more kind of internally felt things, quieter things. So could be a big deal. Doesn't mean it's going to happen external to you. But look to the Scorpio part of your chart and consider what we're focusing the attention on here in the Scorpio part of your chart. Look at those house topics. And we're going to be letting go or decreasing something because that's what the South Node does. It's a reduction. It can be a temporary reduction. It doesn't have to be forever, but it's certainly a lessening of things. So it can be, if you want to, it can be a letting go, a moment to let go of things. And the type of things we're going to be letting go of are going to be watery, potentially emotional in nature, even if it's something that we're just emotionally attached to. We can be emotionally attached to anything, even like beyond material things, like things, people, places. We can be emotionally attached to ideas, to hopes, to aspirations, to plans. We can be attached to anything. So it probably will be something more emotionally attached that we have an opportunity to examine it under the light of this full moon and to decide what level of reduction would be helpful. Could be a little bit of reduction, could be reducing the whole ass thing. So that's that. And then when we look at who's in charge of this, it's Mars. Mars is in charge because they rule Scorpio. Interestingly, it's also the next aspect traditionally, visibly, the visible planet that the moon will make. First, it's going to hit Uranus. The moon's going to meet in opposition with Uranus. So something about this is also potentially unexpected, disruptive. There could be breakthrough energy with it, with Uranus being involved. But the moon also then does a trine with Mars. So we're going to feel an impulse potentially. And I don't think it's like a fast impulse. I don't think it's like the kind that has us jumping out of our chair to go do something, but an impulse nonetheless to act on something. I don't know if we should be acting, should not, I don't know. But this just feels so much like a defensive posturing to me. It's like maybe needing to let go of something. It's wanting to be defensive, though. It's wanting to be protective. And that's, I mean, and I say that because both Cancer is like that. It's protective because it understands kind of the soft, squishy vulnerability of things. Scorpio is protective because it's the defensive aspect of Mars. I feel like Mars in Cancer is kind of like and please don't get mad at me, I feel like this is controversial, but I feel called to say it, that Mars in Cancer is like caffeine free diet light Scorpio. It's like the softer, lighter version of Scorpio, Mars and Cancer, because they both have water and they got Mars. So it's like, if we are in conflict, we're going to do the responsive defensive thing, not the reactive active thing. So defensive posturing about something, I don't know what. And that could be, it could be detrimental. You know, I don't think it's always necessarily a good thing to just like push everything away if we don't like it, or be defensive. Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes that defensive posturing comes from something that happened a long time ago. If I'm being an armchair therapist, psychologist, I'm not. But if I pretend I am, then you can have all kinds of discussions with your therapists about, you know, on this first week of May, having discussions with our therapists about what in the past has made us defensive now. What hurt us? Like, what hurt you? Like, what hurt you that is reasonably having you take a defensive posture or wanting to protect yourself. And maybe we don't want to let go of something because it feels like without it, we won't have that sense of protection. So that might be the case. It may not. And that's up to you to figure out. One thing to note, though, is that this is also a Moon Mercury opposition that's happening. Mercury is retrograde. Mercury is it's combust. It's really close to the sun. So like Mercury in practical, rational Taurus, who very much sees what is right there. What is really actually here in Taurus? What am I tasting, seeing, smelling? That whole rational thing is compromised. It's not online. It's not working how it should. And Moon in Scorpio is maybe in this more sensing, nighttime knowing type of place. You know, I think we, just side note, we tend to value rational thought versus like emotional, instinctual thought. So I want to just make sure that we all know, like, they're the same. They're equally as important. We need to be able to sense a room with all of our senses, not just our thinking brain all the time. So they're both very valuable. In this opposition, we do have both of those things kind of trying to reconcile and maybe having a difficult time doing that. Like what we're thinking and what we're feeling are not matching. What we might feel called to do might not match with the plan. Whatever we're trying to plan, I feel like the water planets here they're not on board necessarily with this plan. The plan itself, we're having a hard time even understanding what it is because of the retrogradedness of Mercury and the combustion. So all of this just to say, if I'm listening to the picture that I'm painting, it doesn't sound like a good day to get involved with drama. It doesn't sound like a good day to be getting into battles that you don't need to, that are unnecessary. And if there are really emotional things, maybe we're feeling really decisive about something, but not feeling like we can act on it. All of those realizations are still really important, but they may have to wait a bit to be acted upon in a way that is actually helpful. So, and personally, whenever there's a full moon, whether or not it's an eclipse, I love to watch and see how the rest of that lunation cycle plays out, especially over the following week until we get to that third quarter moon area. And if you want to wait even longer to see how that whole lunation cycle wraps up, before you make any sweeping changes to your life. Let's see here. I'm going to check on the chat, but yeah, otherwise, I think that's mostly what I have to say about it. The mutual reception here, a lot of people have been bringing that up. I'm on team. They're not in an aspect with each other. So even though like it helps, like it's helpful, like both of these planets are very sympathetic toward each other and they have some kind of resource or access to each other's resources. It's like they don't speak the same language. It's like they are, you know, they have a phone that is disconnected. So they're having, as much as they might want to help each other, there's not a ton of back and forth. So I don't know how much this is going to be helped by this mutual reception, to be perfectly honest. And this mutual reception between two planets that are in fall, I mean, there's also a lot of discussion and back and forth about how to interpret something like this. And to me, it feels like two people who are very under-resourced. Maybe we can imagine them in foreign lands that they are very unresourced in. And again, they might love to help each other. They're, the moon and Mars. They're on the nighttime team. They're on the same team. They really care about each other. They're in each other's places. Mars is not appreciated in Cancer. Moon is not necessarily appreciated in Scorpio. So they don't get the resourcing they need. So what are they going to do to help each other? Like send each other some funny memes, like tell each other a funny joke to like get like gallows humor. Like, I don't know how it's very a free flowing aspect. Like everything between them is free flowing, which is why I'm saying like kind of the defensive posturing of things. But at the same time, like, as far as resourcing and like effectively doing stuff, effectively having a positive outcome that is favorable that we want, that's going to be harder to do because they just don't have a lot to give to each other, besides like hey buddy, how's it going over there? Hey, not very good. Hope you're okay. Like, I don't know. That's my astrological opinion. I guarantee a bunch of astrologers would disagree with me. But that's cool. Let's see what the chat has to say. Donna brings up an interesting point, bringing out like as far as K2, the south node with the moon for that lunar eclipse, bringing out what was hidden potentially with Scorpio. I love that point and I would love to validate it. Letting go. What are we letting go of in Scorpio? Privacy. Hiding things, because that's what Scorpio's really good at. I have a Mars in Scorpio. I know I over strategize. I overthink every little disclosure, right? Sometimes we have to walk through those waters of vulnerability in Scorpio to connect with other people, to build intimacy, to build relationships. Sometimes it is not advantageous to be so private. And sometimes privacy is absolutely to be honored. Sometimes I think we overdo it. And so that south node with the moon in Scorpio, one interpretation could very well be, as Donna is saying, letting go of some privacy, letting go of things you're hiding, letting go of just trying to control the outcome and, have everything fall just as you want it. That can be something to do. And I've actually been seeing that the whole time South Node has been transiting my 10th house of Scorpio. I've been letting go of more and more and more. I'm projecting right now because I've been letting go of my own things like that. That's where all of that's coming from, that's literally what's been happening to me. So I'm in my 10th. Sarah made a joke. Sarah says, I'm attached to everything. I need to get a grip. I don't know if you meant for that to be a joke, but that is a funny play on words. Lee's saying full moons definitely have a real effect on people, and powerful Mars crossed many paths. Yeah, like I'm a believer in the whole full moon makes people busier kind of thing. We're all out there, with the light of the moon. It's just more activity reflected down here. And when we're all out there doing stuff and being busy and active, we bump into each other more and there's more drama. So, the pharmacy would always get, pretty much always, during a full moon, it was busier. Leading up to a full moon, there were more angry people. It was like, I don't think the number of angry people increased. I don't even think that the anger that those people had that were calling me at the pharmacy, I don't think their anger even increased. I literally just think that people are busier under a full moon. And if people are busier, including the ones who don't like me, I'm going to hear from more of them. But yeah, so during a lunar eclipse, it's a very interesting event because all of that light gets interrupted for a minute. And that kind of disruption of that life-giving light is why we talk about eclipses being so unstable. So I'm going to just mind my own business. Fionn, yeah. Big shout out to that though. Big shout out. Also to couples counseling. I've personally done couples counseling in the past with partner. Can't recommend it enough. Like I know that we're now only starting to be more okay with just like individual therapy, and the idea of couples therapy is like the next frontier. But man, if we could do that early in relationship, I mean, we would save so many relationships, just like individuals. You know, you don't want to wait until you're bleeding out to go get something checked out. You want to get things checked out before we're in crisis. So if you ever do any kind of, I don't have synastry offerings on my website explicitly, but people email me and I'll kind of bespoke do like synastry readings for people. And it comes up like every single one. It's like, go to couples counseling, do you have health insurance? Could be covering that couples counseling for you if you have insurance. So why not? Yeah, people are resonating with the Scorpio stuff. So very much, it's interesting thinking about what it is to have a water sign that is ruled by Mars. You know, water is cohesive and it's about connection, and Mars is about separation and protection and that kind of posturing. So yeah, it's very interesting. James French says regarding that Mars Moon mutual reception, says, to me that aspect reception looks like commiseration. Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, like sometimes a friend that you can commiserate with is exactly what is required to get through something. So maybe we can just take that direct advice and just say that, you know, for this eclipse, find a trusted adult that you can talk to to off gas some kind of emotion. Hello, welcome back. Thanks for joining me, everybody. I appreciate it. Get back at it. So is there anything else I want to say about this? Not really. I guess, you know, I should have prefaced it by saying that there was a solar eclipse at the very end of Aries on April, what was it? Yeah, it must have been April 19th. So look back to April 19th. Look back to the Aries part of your chart. Was anything getting started then? Were there any important things that were blossoming or seeding 2 weeks ago, basically? And then 2 weeks later, we can look at this lunar eclipse and see if there's some kind of connection between those two things. Oopsies. So I have a light that is on this side of me, and it's held up in a very precarious situation every month. Every month I put it in this precarious situation and it just fell down. So I'm not going to go get it. I'm just going to be, we're down to 2-point lighting. No more 3-point lighting. That's okay. All right. Let's move on to the 7th. Actually, no, just kidding. So one other thing. So we have the eclipse. The moon, after it opposes the sun, it's going to hit Uranus. So that little zap of something unexpected, something maybe interesting coming in that we didn't expect. Could be cool, could be not, I have no idea. And then moon is going to trine Mars. And then after that, it is going to make a sextile. Once it gets into Sag, it's going to make a sextile with Pluto, and then it's going to meet Saturn. So the moon has a bit of a bumpy ride for like May 4th, May 5th, May 6th, that whole string of dates. We might be experiencing some bumpier bumps. Then on the 7th, Venus enters into Cancer. This is something that that Austin put really well in the May forecast from the Astrology podcast. He was saying that, you know, pretty much this whole trip here, what we've had even prior, as Mars moves around and has all of these interactions with other planets, Venus kind of comes up as a balm or a cleanup crew after Mars. So whatever issues or challenges we might have been having in the Cancer part of our chart since March 25th or so, then Venus comes in and she's hopefully making things feel a little better, smoothing things out, helping us get our needs met. You know, so much about what Cancer is making sure that we're feeling safe, comfortable, secure, all the things that we need to feel as a baby. And with Mars being here, it's like we're wanting to act, we're wanting to assert ourselves, we're wanting to actually meet our needs, but it is difficult for Mars to do that here. And that can be from very tangible in our face reasons. It can also even just be an internal sense that I am not allowed to XYZ. Venus comes in here though on the 7th of May, and she is going to help that whole process of feeling safe, feeling secure, feeling a little bit like we can actually ask for help. We can ask others to help us get our needs met. And that can be small stuff, that can be big stuff. I also really like that she'll then have her eyes on her home in Taurus. She'll be able to guide those planets a little bit better. We'll be able to make some helpful connections between the Taurus and the Cancer areas of our chart. So overall, I really enjoy her coming in here. She will have a trine with Saturn. And this to me, I mean, it's like Saturn is really realistic and somber. They're not like a comforting support person per se. But if there has been a lot of tumult, if there's been even a little bit of tumult, I think that this Saturn-Venus trine can help bring a bit more order, a bit more stability to our relationships, bring in some kind of understanding of what the needs are. Here's the real situation. Here's what I really actually need. How can we figure out that puzzle together? That feels really good for this. Not necessarily like warm and fuzzy, but I think very helpful. And she'll have that for her first several days in here by degree, but it'll still be active by sign after that. How long is she gonna be in there? She gonna be in there. Looks like till June 4th, June 5th. Yeah. So we'll have her for a good solid month in her nighttime, in a nighttime sign, not hers, but a nighttime sign of Cancer. Okay, is there anything else I need to say? Hold please, I'm looking at my notes. Okay, so the next thing of interest was on the 9th. And on this day, Moon is going to be coming around. It's going to be in Capricorn. We're going to have this opposition between the Moon and Mars, another kind of interesting mixed reception situation, opposite Venus. But then we're also going to have Sun conjunct Uranus. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. I'm going to deal with it. So the sun wants to shine. The sun would like to be itself. It would like to feel like it can shine its light and be itself. Already, I feel like the sun on its own can be a very individualistic type of planet, having us really exercising what we perceive, what we believe, what we feel, all of these, like, what is my solar experience, my subjective experience. And then we've got Uranus, who is like this archetype of authenticity, of being an individual, of like uncompromisingly being oneself, disregarding any kind of detriment that might befall you. So when we get them together, I mean, it's like this force of like, at worst, kind of my way or the highway. At best, it is just really letting your freak flag fly, doing your own thing, expressing yourself in the ways that you might want to. This can be disruptive. So Uranus is the disruptor. It's interruptions. It could be, very small. It could be something like, I want to wear like this. This is a good thing. I always want to wear these earrings. Like, I love these earrings, but they're so dangly and they're so disruptive. Like, it's me. Like, these earrings are so me. And I feel like I'm so me when I'm wearing them, but God damn it if they are not just the most dangly disruptors ever. So I never wear them. But if I did, maybe I should wear them. Maybe May 9th is the day when I want to wear my disruptive, distracting earrings. So just make sure the ways in which you are expressing yourself. I mean, it's cool if there's disruptions, but just make sure that that's what you want, I guess. Doing things differently as well. Experimentation. Already we kind of have that going on with Mercury retrograde. Let's just say it again in a different second way with Uranus being here. So like May 8th, May 9th, as these things are waxing in, it might be a cool day to experiment with yourself, experiment with your appearance, experiment with how you communicate and express yourself. As long as you're not like, flipping someone's table, it could be a really enlightening day. Yeah, then at the 10th, that is moving on already. Then we have Mercury's phasis on the 12th. I think I was saying phasis for a while. I'm not sure if it's tomato or tomato on that one. I don't know if there's like an exactly correct way of saying it. But it's spelled phasis, phasis. Mercury is doing one, and I don't even know if that's the correct verbiage, but they are going to be visible now. So in the morning sky, depending on your location, you should be able to start seeing Mercury after the 12th of May. And so now, okay, we've got Jupiter visible. We already had Venus and Mars visible. Now we're going to have Mercury visible. It's like everybody's going to be visible. So all the things that all the planets are doing, barring some other things, should be more seeable, more experienceable. So here with information, facts that maybe we've been waiting for, at this point, they might come through. Exactly as I said with Jupiter, it might be not on the day that it emerges from the beams of the sun, but certainly with visibility, there's a far more likelihood that communications that need to happen are going to happen. You getting news that you need to get, you're going to get that news more probably, or with higher probability. What else? Oh, commerce. Mercury is buying and selling. If you've had any kind of purchases that have had challenges because of the Mercury retrograde, like let's say you're waiting for a return to go through or to get your money back on a refund or something like that, where there's been something outstanding with a purchase or a sale, perhaps with Mercury becoming visible, then that stuff has a better chance of resolving, or at least getting the information that you need to be able to resolve it. So that is cool. I love when Mercury is visible. And two, if you're on the other side of that, if you're doing stuff that you don't want seen, don't want heard, if you are saying things, selling things that you want to keep a secret, now it's going to be harder to do that. So that's the thing to know too, is when Mercury is within 15 degrees of the sun. Granted, some authors say that, Mercury is less affected by this condition because it's just there so frequently, right? Which makes sense. It's just going to be used to it. But when Mercury is actually hidden by the beams, you can have like it's not that Mercury can't do its job. It's not like we can't have effective Mercury things happening, but they're going to be secret, hidden, concealed. So, I'm not like condoning any like nefarious activities, but if you got any nefarious activities to do, get them done before the 12th. Okay. I'm not judging. I'm just giving guidance. So then, what do we have on the 13th? Moon is going to ping this Mars Venus trine that I was talking about, where bringing some sober realism, some stability to our relationships, our commitments with others. That is getting pinged again on the 13th of May. And too, I think about Saturn, Venus contacts as being business partnerships, being types of relationships that have more of that kind of disciplined, structured feel to them. And then on the 14th, we're going to get Mercury stationing direct. So that is May 14th at 10:16 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is silly. Look at this. I didn't even notice this. So Mercury stationing direct at 5 degrees of Taurus. At that same moment, the moon is going to be with Neptune in Pisces. That could not be like any more different. It's like we're trying to get grounded rationality online, and at the same time, it's like Moon, Neptune, and Pisces is off in artistic, spiritual fantasy land. So that's really interesting. I don't have anything else to say about it other than, this is here. So Mars, Neptune trine. This could be us really feeling like we want to sacrifice or devote ourselves to something. This is like very inspired action to help to help protect someone, to help care for somebody, maybe to protect or care for ourselves. So just be sure that the ways in which you are trying to serve, the ways in which you are devoting yourself, hopefully not martyring yourself, but make sure that it's wanted. I know that sounds kind of harsh, but like I think so much we try to fix stuff for people that don't want it. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just like my own hard lesson that I'm telling on myself about right now. But so often I think we call and we feel really inspired in our action and like we're doing the right thing and this is helpful and this is going to be great. But it's not always what is desired or preferred or wanted. I think it could be really great with this trine here, but just make sure too that there's really good communication. As much as Mercury is stationing direct on this day, they are very slow. They're not moving. So that means that our communication may not be moving as well. So just making sure whatever you feel inspired to act upon, that you're not getting yourself into, I don't know, a mess. Or just like working unnecessarily, Then we're going to get Jupiter into Taurus. Before I talk about that, let me check on this chat and see how we're doing. All right. No questions or concerns. Thanks everyone for being here. If you're enjoying this today, hit the like button. If you would like to subscribe, you can hit the subscribe button. All of that helps me very much. So then we've got Jupiter entering into Taurus. I think the biggest deal here is that now the person who's in charge of Saturn will be able to talk to them with much more efficiency, much more efficacy. Will be able to help them get some kind of resourcing, or at least give Saturn some kind of guidance about how to navigate Pisces. Wherever Pisces is in your chart, that might be describing a challenge. If you need to ask for help, or if you need to look for help, if you need to look for support, you can now maybe look in the Taurus part of your chart with more success. Jupiter is affirmation. Jupiter is yes, abundance, health, all those nice physical things that are of the stable conditions for growth. The Taurus part of your chart from May of 2023 to May of 2024 might be a good place to look for help with any kind of Pisces challenges. Jupiter is immediately upon entering into here going to be in a square with Pluto. So that's going to supercharge Jupiter. At the same moment, Mars is applying into a square with Jupiter as well. So we're getting a T square that's set up here. And even a few days before, we've still got, I mean, yeah, that really, the Mars Jupiter square heats up on the 13th of May already. So I don't think we need to get those ingresses to be paying attention to this square. We're really wanting to start stuff. We're wanting to initiate stuff. Like, this is a very powerful energy. Jupiter is our enthusiasm, our optimism to go ahead on a mission. And in Aries, it is extra enthusiastic to do so. Mars is our motivation, our drive. It wants to do the acting. It wants to act on behalf of what Jupiter is believing in down here. So just very, very optimistic. And any kind of Mars Jupiter square can speak to expansive action, abundant action. We're doing a lot of stuff. We're being really confident. We're being really bold and loud about it. When you get Jupiter and Mars together in a nice aspect, not necessarily a hard one like this, but you can have things like victory and competitive greatness and things like that. My concern here is that the story that's set up a bit, Mercury is just stationed. We've gotten through this whole eclipse season. We've gotten through this Mercury retrograde season pretty much. And by that point, a lot of things might be reshuffled, rearranged. We've been kind of having to navigate tricky territories, maybe not able to really hunker down and dig into anything or say yes to things. By the time we get to this point in mid-May, we might really be feeling impulsive about saying yes to doing things. And we might start to feel like we're more stable as well. We've got this nice stabilizing Venus-Saturn trine. We've got Mercury direct. We've got the sun moving away from the destabilizing Uranus. So we might start to feel like, oh, hey, I can take on a lot. I can, we got all this stuff figured out. Let's just go for it. Let's do these things. I would just advise caution in what you commit yourself to during this middle part of May, what you say yes to, what you initiate, because it might end up just being like way too much. Eyes bigger than stomach. I filled my plate way too full of food and I can't eat all of it. So even if we're feeling very optimistic, very energized, powerful, Mars, Pluto, and Jupiter, Mars, they can both give us this sense of vitality. Like, I can conquer the world. I can do anything. And for a short period of time, yes, we may be very capable of a lot, but not overdoing it. So very much the rule here of under promise, over perform. It sounds a little fucky on the surface of it. I'm not saying we under promise and like withhold our gifts or, be stingy about stuff, but, making sure that we're not overextending ourselves essentially. And so this really kicks off then on like the 15th of May or the 16th with Jupiter's ingress. Then even more so on the 20th when Mars enters into Leo, and that's really when this is like peaking. Mars finally gets away from Jupiter here, away from that square. And I shouldn't say finally like it's a bad thing. I think this is going to feel kind of good. Like, I honestly think this T square, we might be feeling like the nice fires of power or empowerment. It feels good to feel empowered. It feels good to feel vibrant and energetic and vital. But in that feeling of power, just make sure you're not overdoing it. And you're not overextending yourself, even in that moment. Going too hard at the gym when you haven't been going hard is not a healthy thing to do. So then this extends as well. let's just make it even longer, because then even after Mars starts to separate from Jupiter, then the moon comes and it pings all of this. And that's on the 24th. So like May 13th, May 14th, all the way through May 24th, this might be a really exciting period of time. We might be doing a lot of things, feeling empowered, taking action on things that we've been waiting for maybe a long time to take action on. Maybe opportunities coming in and we're needing to act on them. Rahu here, the North Node, is another big reason why I am taking a more cautious approach to this T-square, because the North Node is confusing. It is distorting. It is this frenzied, disembodied head of a dragon. That is adding this sense of increase here, where already Jupiter can be increase. So this is like double increase. Don't get greedy. Don't get greedy with how much food you put on your plate. Don't get greedy with how many opportunities are coming in, and like you can't do all of them, right? So just be choosy if that is your case. And once again, Mercury's still pretty slow. They're not super fast at this point. So just be aware of that as well, that our decision-making faculties are being, not that they're compromised at this point, but we still need time to think. We need time to evaluate, to plan, to see if there is an opportunity for growth, how does it fit into the structures and systems that I already have in place? Or if we've just rearranged a bunch of stuff in our life because of the eclipses and the retrograde, with any new opportunities that come in, does this fit in with all of the changes that have just happened as well? So that's that T-square. I think it could be cool. It could be cool. And as you will see on the astrology podcast, I invoked Randy Savage, the the professional wrestler from like the early 90s, late 80s, whenever it was. That's this energy to me. It's very flamboyant. It's very like rushing in, being very expressive and very belligerent and very loud, but also maybe very successful, because it is 30 years later and I am still talking about this man. So that was an interesting thing. But yeah, sometimes with certain configurations, I won't have a lot of words, but I'll have some visions that will give me a vibe. All right. Let's see. Taurus New Moon. I think that's the next thing. We skipped wide over it. Let's talk about this Taurus New Moon. That's another thing too that I think is going to have us feeling a bit more stable after all of this, I don't know, all of the disruptive weather of the last month. Then we get a direct station of Mercury. We get this really stabilizing, as stable as it can be with Uranus right there, and Rahu. Stabilizing, air quotes, new moon in Taurus. And we may feel again like that moment of seeding a bunch of things, being really excited about it. Just, and this is too like maybe the thing where you're planting a garden, you're planting a bunch of seeds, and you only have a certain size of garden, and the seeds have to be planted 6 to 8 inches apart or something. And so that sets up an equation where I can literally only plant this many seeds in this garden. And so don't do the Rahu thing and plant more seeds than you can take care of, I guess. Let's talk a little bit more about that new moon. Venus can see it. She's in charge. She can see it. It's a beautiful reception between Venus and moon on this one as well. Wow, that's really nice. I didn't notice that before either. Oh, I'm gonna do, this might be a good like Netflix and chill day. This might be good for, resetting any maintenance thingies that you have going on in your life. Not really sure. Yeah, this is really it's interesting because it's like we're initiating with the new moon. We're not doing a ton of activity with the new moon. But Mars then taking action or putting an effort when it comes to Cancerian things, which we end up getting ping ponged back into Taurus because that's where the moon is. So yeah, there's this interaction happening between Taurus and Cancer here, where we can initiate, do kind of a final, like, okay, here's the final plan after all of the shit that's happened the last month. Here's what this actually looks like we could be growing here in Taurus, and making a plan for how we're going to act on it in a way that honors what is sustainable, because Cancer, because Taurus, what is sustainable in a way that keeps me well fed, well watered, well taken care of. Because there's a lot of things we can do or create in our lives that we can do them. It's possible to do them, but they're not like sustainable. And I have Capricorn placements. So then my Capricorn placements say, yeah, it is sustainable though, technically, but it's not a sustainable thing or plan or whatever when you consider that one also has to like sleep and shower and cook for themselves or others, or like do all these other self-care things that I think sometimes Capricorn like just kind of edits that out of the schedule. Like, oh, I need to actually make time to eat. So yeah, making sure whatever plans that we're wanting to act on are in the name of our highest comforts, our highest yums, our highest, and less flippantly, our highest sense of security and safety. I think that'll be nice for that new moon. When is there a moon conjunct Venus? On the 23rd. Yeah, I was kind of wondering about this. I know, Mars is there, but, or no, Mars is gone. That's why I liked it. Nope, this is great. So this is the 22nd of May into the 23rd of May. We're going to have the moon in domicile in Cancer. They're not going to be aspected with Mars at all. The only aspect they're getting from a malefic is a trine, so really not that bad. And we are also getting a sextile by sign from Jupiter, and Venus is right there. So this is actually a pretty sweet day. Looks like, if there have been not fun things, May 22nd looks like a really nice day to recover. And that extends into May 23rd. And hell. Yeah. Then we're going to be approaching a very nice, very chill trine with Neptune. So this is another good Netflix and chill day on the 23rd as well, 22nd, 23rd. Those are the days to recoup, to unwind, to rejuvenate yourself. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of interesting too, because it's like, okay, we got these nice couple days that feel a little bit more chill because of the moon's contacts. And then right after it, it's like the moon pings Mars and reactivates that T-square. So then then like we get, will that be the 24th then is a spicy day. The 24th, 25th then turn into spicy days after that. Then the sun is going to square Saturn. Did I say that right? Yeah, sun square Saturn. And this is another little T-square with the moon, actually. This was one of the last interesting things besides the Mercury post-retrograde shadow ending. The last quarter, first quarter of the sun and the moon, these squares are our points of having to pivot, these points of tension in the lunar cycle that we experience every month. And so on its own, moon square sun is a moment, it can be really subtle, just a moment of tension where we need adjustment in whatever this lunar story is doing for that month. But in this case, it's really interesting because that moment is happening exactly in a T-square with Saturn. So we had just had that Taurus New Moon, very end of Taurus, getting something started, feeling hopeful. And then we reached that very first bump in the road at that first quarter moon. But it's a little bit more than a bump in the road. It's more like a, hey, this road is completely blocked. We got to do a detour. So don't be surprised on the 27th if something comes in where that adjustment is needed. And it's not only an adjustment, but we might actually need to slow down, stop for a second, look at the map, kind of get our bearings, and make sure that we're taking the right steps to get to where we need to go. Might not be the most comfortable thing, but I think it will be a constructive set of days. And that's probably going to be, I mean, definitely the 27th for sure, but we'll probably still be feeling that as well on the 28th, the next day. And finally, then we get Mercury reaching its station degree on the last day of May. And we can hopefully put all of these stories behind us. Whatever happened, whatever came up that started mid-April, now by the end of May, there should be some resolution in place. Even maybe you haven't even acted on it yet, but there should be some resolution, some resolving thing to that story in place or ready to go. And then, is everybody direct besides outers? I think everybody's direct until Saturn. Let's see. I'm just going to look. Sorry. Yeah, Saturn is the next one to station. But anywho, that's the month. That's what I got. Does anybody have any transits that you wish we would have looked at that I skipped over? Because I certainly didn't do all of them. Or does anybody have any questions or concerns? I see a couple here that I'll address. Question, what is my big six? Ooh, we have big sixes now? This is exciting. I like this. My big three are, I'm an Aquarius rising, a Capricorn sun, and a Pisces moon. And I mean, what are the other big six? My lot of fortune is in Aries. My lot of spirit is in Scorpio. And my lot of Eros is also in Aries. So it's all just very Mars. Mars ends up doing a lot of things. Is that what you mean by the big six? What are the other three besides the big three? I don't know. Maybe the lots. I threw the lots in there. Oh, maybe you meant the other planets. Venus, Aquarius, Mars and Scorpio, Mercury and Capricorn. Is that all of them? Jupiter and Aries. I was born at the end of 1987. You can you can explore. And then we've got a comment from James. Mercury seems like he's spending a lot of time near the North Node. Great observation, James. Mercury is spending a lot of time with the North Node. And when we think about the North Node being increase, excess, confusion, and we're in Taurus, this to me came out as excess planning, excess routine, even. Like, you know, I've been talking a lot about like either creation or upkeep of some kind of routine that we need to have stability in our life. We could, with the North Node here, even be overdoing that, you know, like over feathering the nest, over planning, you know, being like, if I don't, you know, eat at these exact times, and if I don't go to sleep at these exact times, then everything has failed. Like just kind of that over intensity, because we're also getting an overcoming square, even just by sign with Pluto, that's ratcheting up some of that fixed intensity of things. So yeah, like as much as some of these Mercury things are going to be difficult this month, there's also a very real risk that we could overdo them. So that's a really good observation, and one that I was thinking about. I have two Jameses. James, how does Mercury being retrograde during its cazimi impact its reset. So that is literally just the point in the cycle where it is starting over its journey. There's a really good visual in Demetra George's volume 1, Ancient Astrology. I have it. I don't know if this is legal, but I have it bookmarked. Of course I do. This cycle, it's going to be backwards. Maybe you can pause the video and see if you can read it. But essentially, it's the synodic cycle of Mercury. And when it's going direct through the cazimi, so when Mercury is stationary, or when it's moving direct and it's conjoining the sun, that's the halfway point through its cycle. And then when it hits the sun retrograde, that's the end and beginning of that cycle. I don't know who decided that. I don't know, honestly, I don't know why one is the middle and one is the start and the beginning. It's actually a really good question. And now I'm going to try to figure out the answer to it. So thank you. But that's what I know about that. How does Mercury retrograde? Yeah, and I guess so to answer, how does Mercury being retrograde during its cazimi impact its reset? It's kind of a different question than what I just tried to answer. So I would say that with the retrogradedness, there is a looking back. It's a coming back to something. We're not moving forward towards some kind of plan or exchange like Mercury might do. We are doing some level of coming back and reanalyzing, reevaluating. So that will be part of the kind of insights that we might have, might be more of the insights of like, how can I do this differently? Versus if Mercury was going direct and doing its cazimi, then the insights that we might get are like, what's working here? Like what mercurially is working that's moving us forward? And we might get more of a validation of mercurial signatures. That's my own guess. I don't know if any of that's true or real, but maybe you can bounce that around and maybe it'll help you. Sarah says, how do you view a Jupiter in Taurus as behaving? That's a good question. I didn't really dive into that, and I should. Because Jupiter doesn't exactly have a ton of dignity in this place of Taurus. It's a daytime planet, and Taurus is a nighttime sign. Jupiter has triplicity rulership in fire, in air, I believe. It doesn't have it in water and earth. So it's not really, I wonder if I can just share. I think I can. Yeah, so here we've got Jupiter and Taurus, and this is like kind of that made up point system or whatever. So ruler, you can ignore this, right? Yeah, it's just like all kind of controlled by nighttime planets. It doesn't really have a ton of dignity here where it jives. That being said, it's not like in a bad position. It's not in a place of its detriment. It's not in a place of its fall. Additionally, Jupiter can see. It can't see Sag, but it can see Jupiter. It can also see its place of exaltation. So it's got that going for it. So as far as behaving, I mean, I think it'll behave just fine. It's not as exuberant and abundant as Jupiter in Sagittarius might be. But when we think about the benefics, Jupiter and Venus, they're both planets that their goal is to make stable conditions for growth. We want moisture, stability, consistency, warmth, all of those things. Jupiter and Venus have a lot in common when it comes to creating conditions that are stable and helpful for growth. And so I think that's what will really shine here with Jupiter and Taurus, is Jupiter taking on Venus's work. Jupiter is taking on the work of Taurus. If Jupiter is seeking knowledge, now we're going to seek knowledge about Taurian things. That's cool. I love that. That feels well behaved. If we want to, I don't know, grow abundance, let's just say wealth, like literal Jupiter wealth. That wealth creation is going to happen by Taurian means, by slow, careful planning, by consistent action over time, by making connections with others. All of those types of Taurian earth fixed things. That's how Jupiter is going to create wealth. That seems pretty well behaved to me. So I think it's going to be well behaved. I do think that the first week with Jupiter really near Rahu here, when are they going to get away from Rahu? Yeah, maybe by like mid-June, we can see Jupiter get some space away from Rahu. But the only misbehaving that I'm kind of thinking about is just how Jupiter might be affected by the North Node there. Too greedy, just greediness, just overindulgence. We all may have to just be careful about the indulgences here until mid-June, I would think. Man, I just love that people are talking about a big six. Like, how cool is that astrology has gotten to a point where we can just like meet random people and be like, hey, what are all of your planet signs? And people will just be like, here they are. It's absolutely amazing. It blows my mind. Hopefully that helps, y'all. Really good questions. Thank you so much for asking them. As always, I'm going to do the timestamps eventually. And that'll help navigate a little bit. I don't think I need to post anything else. If I think of anything else to post, I will post it below in the show notes. Let me stop sharing my screen here. Thank you so much, everybody. This has been fun. Announcements. I am doing consultations. Books are always open. Books are always open. I am actually getting a little booked out for the first time in my whole little life. So if you need help urgently, you're going to want to get in sooner than later. I do have a sliding scale if cost is a problem. I do not want it to prohibit people from experiencing the gifts of astrology. So if you are someone, I have it all on the FAQ page of my website, www.aligninglightastrology. But go to my FAQ page. And if you meet the requirements for my sliding scale, particularly if you're like someone who's marginalized, disenfranchised, has been affected by oppression, you qualify. And I do way cheaper readings. So I don't want money to get in the way. You can look at that there. Email me if that's you and you would like that. I don't schedule it through the website. I just schedule it analog in my email. My research is ongoing on the moon under bond. So if you have a balsamic or waxing new moon within 15 degrees, if you have a full moon in your birth chart within 15 degrees on either side, waxing or waning, doesn't matter what sign it's in. If that's you, if you need me to check, I can check. But you might qualify for my research, which is basically exploring this technique called the moon under bond. And you can read all about it on my website under the description of that service. It's another cheap reading. It's because it's research, it's very discounted. The technique itself only takes like 20-25 minutes usually. And then we have the rest of that 45 minutes to just talk about whatever you want to. It would be just like any other reading except short. That's going on. I was just on, actually, there was the Starry Woods podcast. I have a friend named Tony who does a podcast called the Starry Woods Astrocast. I'll link that below too. It was not a forecast, but I just did an episode on his astrology podcast where we talk. It's much more about like education and the path of learning astrology. We talk about that a lot, and my thoughts on education and how to learn astrology. So you can check that out. I'll post that below. And then too, again, just check out the May forecast with the astrology podcast that I did with Chris and Austin. We had a lot of fun. A lot of good points there. Many that I did not make here. So it'll be worth listening to both. Other than that, though, I think that's it. So thank you so much, everyone. Let me see if there's any final things. Hey, thanks, Lee. I appreciate you so much. Tell Pluto. I'm just going to ignore Pluto for the next 20 years. Oh, good to see you, Leslie. I didn't see you pop in. Thanks for joining me. Very much looking forward to that as well. All right. Oh, I wonder what they had, Fionn. All right. Yeah. And if you need an astrologer, are there any other in here? I think it's just Fionn. They're another great astrologer to get a consult from. So, okay. I think that's it. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great, great May. Again, it's going to be May, no matter what we do. It's going to be May. I have to say it one last time. I promise that's the last time. And if you have any questions or any comments, if you couldn't make it live and you have a question, just put it below.